Hello YouTube. Today is November 20th. No, 21st. I did not make my video yesterday for the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I am sorry for that. I hope that if you were able to, that you made it to a Day of Remembrance vigil. Sorry. Always the dogs. Anyway, I hope that you were able to make it to an event and, you know, take some time for reflection on those that we've lost. There's another YouTuber who had been active for 3 years or so, and her name was, I think it was Hopefully Kaylee, and she took her own life on the 19th. Because, and I'm getting a lot of this second and third hand from people who knew her. I myself did not know her. But she took her own life because of some very bad interactions with her family and feeling very alone and like she could not, couldn't go on in the world that she was living in. So she took her own life and left behind a lot of friends and family that do love her. They're going to be loud as possible now. That's awesome. So I wanted to give her a mention, since I suspect she's not going to show up on the list. It was Hopefully Kylie. I'm sorry. Hopeful Kylie, I think. Anyway, I wanted to give her a mention and use that as a way to point out that all of these lists, they do show, you know, the names of all of the people who are killed by others, but those lists tend to leave off the people who take their own lives. And she was roughly the same age as me, but she had been prevented from seeing her children and you know, been put through a lot of pain from her family, is my understanding of the situation. You know, and so that's a terrible loss. But you know, I'm rambling now, but there is a statistic that says that 41% of transgender people who were surveyed have attempted suicide. And she apparently had attempted suicide 3 weeks ago and succeeded just 2 days ago. You know, my heart goes out to her friends and her family and all the people that she had touched along the way. And, you know, and my heart goes out to all of those people who have lost a trans relative or friend because they couldn't bear going on anymore and took their own life, as well as, of course, to all of those who have lost a loved one to violence. But I don't know. I'm really just sort of incoherent at all of this shit being in the world that we have to deal with because we want to be authentic to ourselves and we want to be, you know, the person that we see when we close our eyes, you know, and the fact that other people can level such hate at us because of what they see when they open their eyes and close their hearts, you know? It's just... I don't know. I don't know if there's any use to this video. It's just me sort of screaming into the void a bit, but... Anyway, this is supposed to be video 21 in my 30 videos in 30 days project. And Ironically, the question is, what are your thoughts on the cisgender community? And to be honest, there's not a lot of question to that question. The cisgender community is, if anything, more diverse than the transgender community, and has such a, I mean, it runs the gamut from people who are vocal and, you know, informed allies of transgendered people, and, you know, speak up in places where we are unable to, and shut up in places where we're talking, you know, and learn things that, you know, or accept the fact that they don't know everything about what it is to be transgender, and learn what they can and take that knowledge out into the world, on one end of the spectrum, all the way out to, you know, the kind of people who put women and men on the Day of Remembrance list, or, you know, scare and shame and hurt and, you know, anger people into taking their own lives and removing themselves from this world. And you know, there's no way for me to have a thought on the cisgender community, because there's no one community, and approaching it like that is the same, you know, short-sightedness that allows cisgender people to view us all as one, you know, story that they try to fit every other one of us into, and ignore the fact that coming from, you know, different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different ethnicities, from different races, all impact the way that we are able to live our lives, you know, and be able to operate in this world, you know. My family, talked about, is at least a little religious, but they're not, you know, evangelical or, you know, sort of Bible thumpy about it. So that didn't get in the way of their acceptance of me, you know, and I think their personal definitions of God certainly allow for the variation that I represent, you know, but, you know, there's a lot of kids who, I think there was another statistic, and, you know, stats get into this really murky area, but it was something like 40% of all homeless youth are LGBT, and, you know, a significant portion of them are trans. So that really means that for a population that represents about 1 to 10% of the general population, we're kicked out of homes, you know, 4 to 40 times more often than, you know, than our cis-het counterparts, you know, and that all comes from not understanding and anger and shame and hate, you know. So that's part of the cisgender community too. You know, the huge, vast majority of trans people who show up on the lists for Transgender Day of Remembrance are of color. You know, they're in the U.S. They're generally black women, black trans women. Globally, they're, you know, they're people of color. Like, there's last year, I remember last year because I didn't look at this year's list, but last year it was some crazy 30%, 40%, 50% number came from Brazil, and several of them were, you know, on the same day, and it was just mind-boggling. Like, you know, I'm a white trans woman in middle-class America, in a major metropolitan area. Like, my level of risk is much lower than, you know, than so many other people, and it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, well, the cis community is so very accepting, and it just takes understanding and education and blah, 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 but that's not reality for a lot of people, you know? I don't know. There's some great cis people. There's some really fucking shitty cis people, too. And, you know, they don't do us the benefit of wearing signs that say, I'm a transphobic, homophobic asshole, please avoid me, you know? Maybe it'd be a much better world if they did. So there you go. There's my thoughts on the cis community. Because the fact of the matter is, trans people who are killed by cis people 999 out of 1,000 times. And I really only hedge that 1 out of 1,000 as, you know, a safety margin of error, because it's certainly a distinct possibility that one trans person could kill another trans person, but the likelihood is that it's some cis prick who killed a woman who was trying to live her life and violated his particular sense of gender right and wrong. So, you know, I hope you'll forgive me if I'm always a little bit less comfortable around cis people, because, you know, it's their world and we're just living in it, and you never know when they're going to enforce their gender boundaries. So, yeah, I'm sorry that this isn't a fun and happy video. You know, I try to stay upbeat most of the time, but sometimes it just all gets to me, and I realize just how fragile my hold on this particular life is. You know, I just got a call 10 minutes ago, because I'm a contractor for my job, and the company that I contract to is putting all of the contractors on furlough for the last 2 weeks of the year, which means that I'm not getting paid for the last 2 weeks of the year, and I didn't have any warning of that. So, you know, it's possible some of my frustration is fueling, you know, this particular video, but, you know, it's one piece of shitty news on top of 239 others. You know, I think that's how long the list was this year. You know, and no one gives a shit, man. Like, we talk to ourselves about all of this that's going on, and cis people don't listen because they don't have to listen, you know, and the only ones that are listening are the ones that are already inclined to do so. You know, no one's watching my video who is also inclined to, you know, attack a trans woman when he brings her home and finds out that she has different equipment than he assumed, because he lives in a cis-centric world where he gets to look around and assume everybody is cis, or that trans women are obvious, or trans men are obvious, and that we're not just people, you know? So, I don't know. I'm a little cynical today, and I'm sorry. Hopefully tomorrow will be a more upbeat video. And in fact, you know, tomorrow's Friday, so I'll be recording 3 of them. So hopefully I can do 3 upbeat videos so you have a cheery weekend. But other than that, I'm sorry. I really am. You know, it's, this question really should not have come after Day of Remembrance, to be perfectly honest, because it really doesn't put me in the most charitable frame of mind for cis people. And there's nothing I'm really sad about as far as that's concerned, you know? I know a lot of really great cis people, and there's some really fucking shitty ones. So, I don't know. I don't even know how to end this shit. I mean, God, now I'm just ranting. You know the standard stuff. Send me a message. Leave me comments below. Find me on Tumblr, brinconvenient.tumblr.com, @brinconvenient on Twitter. Join us in the forums at bygender.net/forum. Yeah, man, it's rough. I don't even know. But it's about 15 minutes, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign off with a rather unsatisfying ending. See you tomorrow.